Okay, the next installment here for Herbert Hoover and Riverside students. More on city size and crime rates. As of 2004, cities with the highest crime rates were the third-tier smaller cities. Cities under 500,000 people, like Cleveland, Ohio, Birmingham, Alabama, and also second-tier cities, like El Paso, Texas, and Baltimore, Maryland, that have anywhere between 500,000 and 1 million people. Surprisingly, it's not the biggest cities in the U.S. that have 1 million people or more that have the highest crime rates. Rates are based on number of people per population. New York City has 8.3 million people, for example. Phoenix, Arizona has 1.5 million people. So crime rates are actually higher in Baltimore, Maryland, in Detroit, Michigan, than they are in New York City. And New York City is very, very big. Now, caution here, there's a caveat. These numbers regarding crime rates reflect official police records. What about crimes that are not reported or detected? That's a big issue. You can't measure what you don't know, but we certainly can understand and know that there's a lot of crime that doesn't get reported. Working in the prison system, I've seen many inmates and victims who have said, yeah, I've committed crimes, or yeah, I've been victimized by crimes that were never reported, or someone plea bargained out of it, so it never got officially reported. Many argue that crime reports coming from victim surveys, where the victims and not the police are reporting it, are more accurate measures of crime. The greatest concentration of criminal offenses occur in inner city districts with poverty-stricken minority populations. In 2003, members of the poorest U.S. households with incomes under $7,500 a year, that's not much at all, were twice as likely to be assaulted and 4 times more likely to be robbed than those more well-off households earning $75,000 or more. Race and crime. Many people link crime to non-white minorities, which is a mistake in a lot of ways. Fact, 2/3 of arrests for serious crimes involve white people in the U.S., but African Americans are way more likely to be arrested than whites. So why is that? We could spend a lot of time talking about stereotypes and the idea that black people are thugs and they're more aggressive and they live in inner cities and they're just they're on the streets more, they're more visible, and they are more visible to the police officers when they're on the streets. But a lot of this can lead into a discussion of racial profiling, stereotyping, etc., etc. Fact, crime is largely intra-racial. A lot of people assume that black people are the ones out there assaulting everybody. Black people, white people, women, children, whatever. Well, not so fast. In 2003, 91% of single offender violent crimes by African Americans were against other African Americans. Same for white people. 84% in 2003 of single offender violent crimes by white people were against other white people. So violent crime is largely and overwhelmingly intra-racial. Same race on same race. So that dispels a lot of stereotypes and a lot of misinformation that a lot of us have, I think. In black urban ghettos in the U.S., homicide rates are at what I would say are epidemic levels. African Americans are 6 times more likely to be murdered than white people. And there are less African Americans than white people in this country. In 2003, African Americans killed 2,684 other African Americans. Only 153 fewer murders than of whites, but whites outnumber African Americans more than 6 to 1 in this country. So that gives you an idea of what an overwhelming problem it is. Lots of different ways to explain high crime areas in the U.S. Banfield argues that inner cities are characterized by what's called a lower class culture, where crime thrives. We've been talking about this. If you think of lower class culture, you think of people who are uneducated, who are poor perhaps, they deal with unemployment. There are high instances of social assistance and welfare, basically inner cities, where people are just struggling mightily. And crime kind of, when you have poverty and unemployment and these kinds of problems, crime just kind of happens with that. Herrnstein and Murray in 1994 assert that lower IQ in inner cities explains irresponsible behaviors. Very famous book called The Bell Curve. These 2 Harvard-trained PhDs basically came out and said that black people are inherently less intelligent. They're less motivated. They're more prone to criminality. They're more prone to teenage pregnancy because they're black, basically. And this book caused a lot of controversy. A lot of people feel like these two authors ignored completely the social environments that people were raised in making these assertions. Castells argued that you can explain crime by the structure of capitalism. Those who are in positions of power to enforce the law and define the law largely are those of privilege and who are largely white. What types of people or who are in positions of power here? Largely, again, people with privilege and money and who are white. Who are not in positions of power? What types of people are not in positions of power? Well, minorities. So if you can define the law, you can make examples of others who are not in your group and punish them. Massey and Denton argue that black residential segregation has the effect of concentrating crime and poverty. And that happens in inner cities. You have a lot of minorities are pocketed and reside in the same areas, and it just concentrates crime and poverty. And we'll call that the end of this part. Thanks.